My friend Diane called me last Tuesday crying. She's 74 years old. She worked in pharmaceutical sales for 31 years, and she just found out she can't afford to stop working. She made $82,000 her last year before they downsized her department. She called me because she wanted to know how I did it, how I retired at 68 with money in the bank, on a teacher's aide salary that never once touched $35,000. I didn't know what to tell her at first, because the honest answer is kind of embarrassing. I didn't do anything smart. I just didn't do the things she did. I need to back up. My name's Bob, and I was a paraprofessional at Garfield Elementary in Akron, Ohio for 29 years. If you don't know what a paraprofessional is, I sat next to kids who needed extra help and made sure they didn't fall behind. Special ed mostly. Some reading intervention. I started in 1988, making $14,200 a year, and I topped out around $34,100 by the time I left in 2017. That's not a typo. $34,100. My W-2 never once made a bank teller raise an eyebrow. Diane and I went to the same church for 20 years. Her husband Rick sold commercial insurance. Between them, they pulled in around $140,000 a year through the 90s and 2000s. They had a beautiful house in Bath Township, maybe 2,800 square feet, finished basement. They drove new cars every 3 to 4 years. Diane always had something nice. An Acura, then a Lexus, then an Audi. Rick had trucks. They took vacations. Hilton Head every June, sometimes a cruise in the winter. None of that is wrong. I want to be clear about that. They worked hard, and they spent their money on things they enjoyed. But here's what happened. By the time Diane was 60, they had about $140,000 in retirement savings between them. That's it. Two people making $140,000 a year for decades, and they saved roughly 1 year's income. The median retirement savings for American households is $87,000, so they were actually above average. That's the scary part. Above average wasn't enough. What did I have at 60? About $295,000 on a salary that was less than half of what Diane made alone. Here's what happened, and it's not complicated. In 1993, 5 years into my job, I opened a Roth IRA at a Vanguard branch in Independence. I'd read an article in the Akron Beacon Journal about a new kind of retirement account where you put money in after taxes, but it grows tax-free, and you never pay taxes taking it out. But the tax-free part got my attention because I figured I'd be in a higher tax bracket by the time I retired. That turned out to be wrong. My tax bracket never really changed. But the Roth turned out to be the right move anyway, because every dollar I pull out now is mine. No surprises in April. I started with $50 a month. That was genuinely hard. I was making about $18,000 at the time, and my husband Earl was doing heating and cooling repair, maybe another $30,000. We had 2 kids, a mortgage on a 3-bedroom ranch in Aide that cost us $62,000 in 1990, and a used Dodge Caravan. $50 a month meant no pizza on Fridays for a while. The kids noticed. They weren't happy about it. But I kept going. By 1998, I was putting in $100 a month. By 2003, $200. The Roth IRA contribution limit was $3,000 a year back then, and I wasn't hitting it, but I was getting closer. I put it all in a total stock market index fund because someone at the Vanguard office told me it was the simplest option and had low fees. I didn't know what I was doing. I just trusted that the simplest option was probably the least likely to be a trick. Meanwhile, Diane and Rick were doing what most people do when their income goes up. They upgraded. The first house was fine, but then Rick got promoted and they moved to Bath Township. The mortgage went from $800 a month to $1,900. The cars got nicer. The vacations got longer. They ate out 3-4 nights a week. Diane started getting her hair done at a place that charged $180 every 6 weeks. Rick joined a golf club. Monthly dues were something like $350. None of these are crazy expenses individually, but they stack, and they never stop stacking. I know these numbers because Diane told me most of them over the years, not bragging, just talking, the way friends talk. And I remember sitting in her kitchen once, maybe around 2006, and she said something that stuck with me. She said, "We make good money, but I don't know where it goes." She laughed when she said it, like it was just a funny observation. But I remember thinking, I know exactly where my money goes, every dollar. Because when you only have $34,000 of them, you pay attention. The 2008 crash hit both of us. My Roth dropped from about $95,000 to around $58,000. Diane and Rick's 401ks took a similar hit percentage-wise. But here's the difference. They panicked and moved everything to bonds. I didn't do anything. I kept my $200 a month going into the same index fund. By 2012, I was back above where I'd been. They weren't, because bonds barely grew, and they never moved back into stocks. They were too scared. That one decision probably cost them $80,000 or more over the next decade. The other thing I did, and this is the part that sounds boring but actually matters the most, is I never moved. Same house in Ellet from 1990 to today. We paid it off in 2009. Earl and I had a little celebration. He bought a bottle of champagne from Acme, and we sat on the porch and drank it out of coffee mugs. After that, our monthly housing cost was basically just property taxes and insurance, maybe $280 a month total. Diane was still paying $1,900 a month on her mortgage when she was 65. Same house, just refinanced a couple times and pulled equity out for renovations. I drove a 2004 Honda Civic until 2016. Then I bought a 2012 Honda Civic, paid cash, $8,400. I'm still driving it. It has 141,000 miles, and it runs fine. The average new car payment in America right now is over $730 a month. That's $8,760 a year just for the payment. I spend about $2,100 a year total on my car, including insurance and gas. That's less than what most people pay in 4 months. When I retired in 2017, my Roth IRA was at about $340,000. I also had a small pension from the school district, about $650 a month, and Social Security of around $1,400. Earl had his own Social Security of about $1,700 before he passed in 2021. Between the pension, Social Security, and what I pull from the Roth, I bring in about $3,800 a month now. My expenses are about $2,200. The house is paid off. I don't have a car payment. I don't have credit card debt. I buy groceries at Aldi. I get my hair cut at a place that charges $18. Diane still works 3 days a week as a pharmacy consultant through a staffing agency. She tells me she likes staying busy, and maybe that's true. But she also told me she can't stop because Rick's medical bills from his hip replacement wiped out most of what they had left, and their house still has $120,000 on the mortgage. She's 74 years old, and she's still got a mortgage. I don't tell this story to make Diane look bad. She's one of my closest friends, and she's a wonderful person. I tell it because the math doesn't work the way people think it does. Everyone assumes the person making $80,000 is going to retire better than the person making $34,000. That's logical, but it ignores the thing that actually determines whether you can retire, which is not how much you make, it's how much of it you keep. Diane kept almost none of hers. I kept a little bit of mine every month for 24 years. The gap between us isn't talent or intelligence. Diane is smarter than me. The gap is that every time her income went up, her spending went up to match it. And every time my income went up, which wasn't often and wasn't much, I put half the raise into the Roth and kept living the same way. Earl used to say something I think about a lot. He'd say, "The money you don't spend is worth more than the money you earn, because nobody takes a cut of it. No taxes, no fees, no interest. It just sits there being yours." I'm 78 now. I go to water aerobics on Monday and Thursday mornings at the Ellet Community Center. I babysit my granddaughter Lily on Wednesdays. I read, I garden, I drive my 2012 Civic to church on Sundays, and sometimes afterward I go to Bob Evans with my friend Marlene, who retired from the post office. We split a meal because neither of us can eat a full portion anymore. The check is usually about $14 total. Diane called me last Tuesday wanting to know my secret. I told her I don't have one. I just never upgraded.